Chapter 24. Niu Pu is involved in a lawsuit, and Pao Wen-ching goes back to his old trade. After Niu Pu married into the Huang family in Antung, they gave him 3 or 4 more front rooms, and on his door he posted a notice, Niu Pu Yi, poet and essayist. He was sitting at home one morning when there came a knock, and he opened the door to see an old neighbor from Wuhu County called Shi, who was nicknamed the Rat. He was a notorious old swindler. Niu Pu was rather taken aback, but he had to bow to this fellow and ask him to sit down while he went in to fetch tea. "This is that uncle of yours who came last year and said he would be back," said his wife, who had been watching from behind the screen. "He's no uncle of mine," protested Niu. He took tea out and offered it to the Rat. "I hear you're in luck," said the Rat, "and I see you've married again here. I haven't seen you for many years. Where have you been?" asked Niu. "Oh, wandering about in Ping and Shantung. I was passing this way, and it happens that all my money is spent. So I've called on you to borrow a few taels. You must help me out." "We may be old neighbors," said Niu, "but we never did business together. Besides, I am a stranger here, staying with my father-in-law. What money can I give you?" "You ungrateful cub," the Rat gave a sneering laugh. "Think how much you had from me when I was spending money like water. Yet now that I try to save your face, since I see you've married a sickened wife here, and it wouldn't be quite the thing to expose you, you still talk to me like that." "What do you mean?" retorted Niu angrily. "When did I ever have money from you? I've never seen you spending money like water. An old man like you should be thinking of doing good deeds instead of cheating people all the time." "Niu Pu," warned the Rat, "be careful what you say. Think of all the crooked things you did in your earlier days. You may be able to fool others, but you can't fool me. You're guilty of bigamy, you know it. You've deserted your Pu family wife over there and deceived your new Huang family wife here. If you don't hand over a few taels quietly now, I'll report you to the Antung Yamen." "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Niu leapt to his feet. "Let's go to the Yamen." They dragged each other out of the door and straight to the Yamen gate, where 2 runners who knew Niu Pu hastily stopped them to ask what was the matter. The Rat launched into a denunciation, accusing Niu of deceiving both the Pu family and the Huang family, and of masquerading under a false name. "He's a well-known crook from my county called the Rat," declared Niu, "and now he's old and shameless. Last year he came to our house when I was away, passing himself off as my uncle in order to get a free meal. Now he's turned up again to demand money. That's outrageous." "All right, Mr. Niu," said the runner, "but he's an old man, and even if he's not your relative, he's an old neighbor of yours. Probably he really has come to the end of his money. And as the proverb says, poverty at home isn't poverty, but poverty on the road is killing. Still, even if you have money, you won't want to give him any now. So suppose that we raise a few hundred cash for you, so that he can continue on his journey." Still, the Rat was not satisfied. "It's no use causing trouble here," the runner told him. "Mr. Niu is a very good friend of our magistrates. An old man like you shouldn't behave so disgracefully, when it'll make things worse for you." This stopped the Rat's blustering. He took the money, thanked them all, and left. Niu Pu thanked the runners too, then started home. He had not gone far when a neighbor accosted him. "Mr. Niu," he called, "come over here for a moment." Having pulled him into a quiet alley, the neighbor went on, "Your wife is having a row with somebody. With whom?" "Just after you left, a sedan chair arrived with a load of luggage, and your wife lit in a woman. That woman swears that she is your former wife and insists on seeing you. She and your wife are at it now, hammer and tongs. Your wife wants you to go back at once." At this, Niu felt as if plunged into icy water. "This must be the work of that damned old Rat," he thought. He sent my first wife along to stir up trouble. There was nothing for it, though, but to pluck up courage and go back. When he stood outside the door listening, however, it wasn't his first wife he heard carrying on inside, but someone with a Cheking accent. He knocked at the door and went in, and when he and the woman met, neither knew each other. "Here is my husband," cried Niu Pu's wife. "Do you still claim him as yours?" "You're not Niu Pu Yi," exclaimed Mr. Niu. "I certainly am," declared Niu Pu, "but I don't know who you are, ma'am. I am Niu Pu Yi's wife. You have taken my husband's name, you wretch, as an advertisement. You must have murdered my husband. Don't imagine you're going to escape." "There are plenty of people with the same name," retorted Niu Pu. How does that prove that I murdered your husband? This is fantastic. You must have killed him. I went all the way to Wuhu to Sweet Dew Temple and was told that he was at Antung. Imposter. Give me back my husband. Weeping and wailing, she told her nephew to seize Niupu, then mounted her chair and raised a great outcry all the way to the yamen. The magistrate was just leaving when she made her complaint. Then he told her to send in a written charge. When this was received, runners summoned all those concerned, and a notice was posted up of the time of the trial, which was to take place 3 days later at noon. There were 3 cases that day, the first involving the murder of a man's father, the plaintiff being a monk. This monk stated that he had been gathering firewood on the mountain when he noticed that one of the cows grazing there kept staring fixedly at him. Strangely moved, he went up to the cow, whereupon tears gushed from the beast's eyes, and when he knelt down before it, the cow licked his head, its tears falling faster and faster. The monk realized that this cow must have been his father, whose soul had entered the body of a cow. He pleaded tearfully with the owner of the cow to give him the beast, in order that he might keep it in the temple. Then, however, a neighbor had taken the cow away and killed it. The monk had come to court with the man who had given him the cow. The monk had now come to court with the man who had given him the cow as his witness. When Magistrate Hisung had heard the monk's story, he questioned the neighbor. 3 or 4 days ago, this monk led the cow over and sold it to me, said the neighbor, and I killed it. But yesterday the monk came back to claim that this cow was his father, so I must pay him some money, because he has sold it too cheaply. When I wouldn't give him any more money, he started abusing me. I've heard say that the cow wasn't his father at all. For years now this monk has shaved his head and put salt on it, and whenever he sees cattle grazing, he picks out the fattest cow and kneels before it, so that the cow licks his head. Any cow licking salt will shed tears. When he declares that this cow is his father, and goes crying to the owner to ask to have it given to him, and when he gets it, he sells it. He has done this many times, now he is accusing me. I beg your honor to decide between us. The magistrate called the owner of the cow. Did you really give him the cow for nothing? He asked. Yes, I didn't give him a single cent. Transmigration has always been considered a mystery, declared Magistrate Hisung, but this is simply incredible. Besides, if he really believed that this cow was his father, he ought not to have sold it. The bald pate is a scoundrel. Having sentenced the monk to 20 strokes, he dismissed the case. The second case involved a poison charge. The plaintiff, Mr. Lai, was the dead man's elder brother, and the defendant, Mr. Chen An, Magistrate Hisung called the plaintiff. How did he poison your brother? He asked. My brother was ill, so I called in Dr. Chen. But the day after the doctor gave him medicine, my brother had a fit and jumped into the water. He was drowned. Obviously, he must have been poisoned. Were you enemies? No. Magistrate Hisung then called the doctor. What medicine did you prescribe for Hu Lai's brother? He asked. He had caught a chill, replied Dr. Chen, so I prescribed a medicine to make him sweat, which included 8 drachmas of asarum. There was a relative there at the time, a squat, round-faced fellow. When he said that 3 drachmas of asarum would prove fatal, But that's certainly not what the Pharmapoetica says. Pharmapoesia. 3 or 4 days after this, his elder brother jumped into the river and was drowned. But how can he be blamed for that? You can analyze the properties of all the 400 herbs that exist, Your Honor, without finding one which will make people jump into a river. This is ridiculous. I am a professional man, and this slander is bad for my practice. I beg Your Honor to judge between us. I have never heard such nonsense, agreed Magistrate Hisung. A doctor is a servant of humanity, and when you have a sick man in the house, Hu Lai, you ought to look after him. Why did you let him get out and jump into the river? How can you blame that on the doctor? The idea of bringing such a case to court. Thereupon he dismissed the case. Mr. Niu was the plaintiff in the 3rd case, and she accused Niu Pu of murdering her husband. When Magistrate Hisung called on her, she told him how she had traveled from Chiking to Wuhu and from Wuhu to Antung. Now he has taken my husband's name, she concluded. If I don't ask him what has become of my husband, who can I ask? That doesn't follow, replied the magistrate. Do you know this woman, Mr. Niu? I know neither her nor her husband, protested Niu Pu. Yet she suddenly came to my home demanding her husband. It was a bolt from the blue. Apparently Mr. Niu here and your husband are both called Niu Puyu, said He-sing to Mrs. Niu, but there are many people in the world with the same name. Of course, Mr. Niu doesn't know the whereabouts of your husband. You had better look for him elsewhere. Mrs. Niu started sniffling and sobbing and insisted her husband must be avenged, until the magistrate lost patience with her. Very well, he said. I will send 2 runners to escort you back to Shaoxing. You can appeal to your own magistrate. It's not my job to look into this unsubstantiated charge. You may leave too, Mr. Niu. When the magistrate had dismissed the court, 2 runners accompanied Mrs. Niu to Shaoxing. This affair was later reported to the higher authorities, and Magistrate He-sing was accused of letting his friendship for poets interfere with his judgment of murder cases. An investigation was ordered, and the matter was reported to the judicial commissioner. This commissioner's name was Su, and as the nephew of a eunuch, he had started his life with a heretical title and had later been promoted to his present position. One evening he ordered his secretary to copy out the charge and read it carefully under the lamp. The charge began, "This is to denounce an incompetent, irresponsible magistrate in order to purge the civil service." Then followed many charges against Xiang Ting, magistrate of Antang. The judicial commissioner was studying this document carefully when he noticed a man kneeling in the shadow cast by the lamp, and saw that it was an actor named Pao Wen-ching, who served in the yamen. "What do you want?" he asked. "Get up to speak." "What do you want?" he asked. "Get up to speak." "I heard just now," said Pao, "that charges are being brought against Magistrate He-sung of Antang. I don't know this gentleman personally, but ever since I studied drama under my tutor from the age of 7 or 8, I have read his plays. He's a great scholar and a writer of genius, yet it has taken him more than 20 years to reach the rank of magistrate. It does seem a shame, and now it looks as if he'll be dismissed. Besides, he's in trouble only because he respected scholars. May I beg you, sir, not to condemn him?" Who could imagine that you would take such an interest in scholars?" exclaimed the commissioner. "Since even you want to help a scholar, of course I want to help him out. But if I let him off, he won't know that he has you to thank. I'll tell him what has happened, and send you to his yamen so that he can give you a few hundred taels to show his gratitude, which you may use as capital when you go home." Pao Wen-ching kowtowed in thanks, and the commissioner told his servant to inform the secretary that no further investigation was required in the case of Magistrate of Antang. A few days later, Commissioner Su sent a runner with a letter to accompany Pao Wen-ching to Antang. When Magistrate He-sung opened the commissioner's letter, he was amazed and hastily ordered his men to open the gate of his house and invite Mr. Pao, going out himself to welcome him. Pao Wen-ching came in a black gown and small cap, and knelt to pay his respects. Magistrate He-sung wanted to raise him up and bow in return. "Who am I to be greeted as an equal?" protested Pao. "You come from my superior's yamen, and you are my benefactor," replied Magistrate He-sung. "You should let me pay my respects. Please get up so that I may bow to you to express my thanks." Still Pao declined, and when the magistrate pulled him up, he refused to be seated. In desperation, the magistrate said, "Judicial Commissioner Su sent you here, and if I treat you discourteously, he will take it as a slight." "Although you want to honor me, sir," said Pao, this would run counter to court etiquette, and I dare not consent to it." He stood there with his hands at his sides to give brief answers to the magistrate's questions, then withdrew to the corridor. When Magistrate He-sung asked relatives to entertain him, Pao Wen-ching still declined resolutely. But later, when one of the stewards was sent to keep him company, he looked pleased and sat in the steward's room laughing and talking. The next day, the magistrate prepared a feast in the library and poured out wine for Pao Wen-ching. But the latter knelt down to decline the honor, and asked to be seated. Once more declined. There was nothing the magistrate could do but send the feast to the servants' quarters and ask his servants to eat with the actor. And for this Pao insisted on offering thanks. Magistrate He-sung then wrote a letter to express his gratitude to the judicial commissioner and wrapped up 500 taels of silver for the actor. But Pao would not take a cent. This is the stipend the court gives to the gentleman," he protested. "I am a common man. How dare I use His Imperial Majesty's silver? If I were to take this silver for my family, I should certainly die for my presumption. Have pity on me, Your Honor, and spare my unworthy life." Since he spoke so emphatically, the magistrate could not insist. He therefore reported this in another letter to the judicial commissioner, and then, after entertaining Pao for several days, had him escorted back to Nanking. When Commissioner Su heard what had happened, he considered Pao a fool, but there the matter rested. After some time, the commissioner was promoted and took Pao with him to the capital. As soon as he reached Peking, however, Commissioner Su fell ill and died. And since the actor had no friends in Peking and was a native of Nanking, he packed up and went home. Nanking was the capital of the first Ming Emperor, and its inner wall has 13 gates. Its outer wall 18, more than 10 miles across and 40 miles in circumference. The city boasts several dozen large streets and several hundred small alleys, which are thronged with people and filled with gilt and painted pavilions. The Qinhui River, which flows through Nanking, measures over 3 miles from the east to the west ford, and when its water is high, painted barges carrying flutists and drummers ply to and fro on it day and night. With and without the city stand monasteries and temples with green tiles and crimson roofs. With and without the city stand monasteries and temples with green tiles and crimson roofs. During the 6 dynasties, there were 480 temples here, but now there must be at least 4,800. The streets and lanes house 6 or 7 taverns, large and small, and over 1,000 tea shops. No matter what small alley you enter, you are bound to see at least one house where a lantern is hung to show that tea is sold. And inside the shop you will find fresh flowers and crystal clear rainwater on the boil. Those tea shops are always filled. At dusk, bright horn lanterns hang from the taverns on both sides of the road. Several thousand lanterns on each main street, making the highway as bright as day, so that passer-by need not carry lanterns with them. Late at night, when the moon is up, boats playing soft music glide up and down the Qinhui, enchanting all who hear them with their clear, tender strains. Girls in the houses on both banks roll up their curtains and lean over the railings to listen quietly, dressed in light gauze and with jasmine flowers in their hair. In fact, as soon as the drums sound in the lighted boats, screens are rolled up and windows opened on both sides of the river, and the scent of the ambergris and sandalwood burnt in the houses here floats out to mingle with the moonlight and mist on the river, until you fancy yourself in paradise or fairyland. There are the government sing-song girls from the courtesans' quarter too, in their bright, fashionable costumes, who welcome travelers from all parts. Thus every day seems like the spring festival, and every night like New Year's Eve. Pao Wenqing lived at Westwater Gate near Treasure Gate. If, in the old days, 100 cows, 1,000 pigs, and 10,000 bushels of grain were said to pass through Treasure Gate every day, there must now have been 1,000 cows, 10,000 pigs, and more grain than could be counted. Going through Westwater Gate then, Pao went home and saw his wife. His family had been actors for several generations and were still in the theatre business. There were 3 guild centers for actors at Yuanqing Bridge, and 1 temple to the god of drama. And at Westwater Gate was another guild center and another temple. At these centers hung the names of the different companies, and to engage actors one had to write down on the board a few days in advance the date they would be required. Pao Wenqing's name was up in the Westwater Gate Center. The rules of the theatre was extremely strict, and if an actor did anything wrong, his whole guild had to go to the temple to burn incense. While on their return to the center, the case would be tried by all, and they could beat or punish the offender who dared not complain. There were operatic companies here, with about 12 men to each, dating from the days of the first Ming dynasty, of the first Ming emperor, and each company still had a stone tablet in the temple with the names of the different actors inscribed on it. Moreover, the descendants of those players, whose names were on the tablet, if they remained in the theatre, enjoyed certain hereditary privileges. Even when they were only a few years old, they were called elders, and they had to be consulted on all the affairs of the company before any decision could be reached. The name of Pao's grandfather was on the first tablet. When Pao reached home, after setting various domestic problems, he took out his flutes, pipes, 3-stringed instruments, and lutes to examine them. Some of the strings were broken, some of the instruments cracked, and all of them thick with dust. Presently he put them aside and went to a tea shop near the guild center to meet fellow actors. In the tea shop he saw a man in a tall hat, sapphire blue gown, and black shoes with white soles, drinking tea alone. Going closer, Pao saw that it was pockmarked Chin, who played old men's parts in his company. "When did you come here?" asked pockmarked Chin. "Sit down and have some tea." When I saw you at a distance," remarked Pao, "I thought it was a gentleman from Hanlon Academy who had wandered in by mistake to drink tea. But it's only you, after all, you old sinner." He took a seat at the same table. You've just been to the capital, Wenqing, and seen a few officials, said pockmarked Qian. Now you try to impress us with your Han lens. That's not what I meant, countered Pao. But it's not right in our profession to wear those clothes. If you wear clothes like that, what can the scholars wear? That was true 20 years ago, retorted Qian. But nowadays, when folks celebrate birthdays or weddings in Nanking, even if we go there with one pair of candlesticks, they have to ask us to sit down to a meal with them, and high officials sometimes have to take lower seats. As for those peasants who only passed the local examinations, I scorn to look at them. Friend, protested Pao, if you give yourself such airs, you deserve to remain an actor in your next life. In fact, if you become an ass or a horse, it'll simply serve you right. As pockmarked Qian dealt him a blow, laughing, the waiter brought them cakes. While they were eating, an old man walked in leaning upon a dragon-head stick. He was wearing a hood, a dark purple silk gown, and black shoes with white soles. Mr. Huang, called pockmarked Qian, come and have tea with us. I was wondering who you were, replied the old man. So it's you two. I couldn't recognize you until I came closer, but you can't blame me for that. I'm 82 this year. My eyes should be a little dim. When did you come back, Pao Wenqing? I only arrived a few days ago, and have not yet had time to call on your uncle. How quickly time passes. It's 14 years since we last met. I remember the year that I lived here, I saw you perform in The Waiter in the Tea Shop in Duke Hisu's house. Are you still with the company? Mr. Huang shook his head. I gave up acting long ago, he said. When they had sat down again and ordered more cakes, the old man said to Qian, the other day, Mr. Chang, the provincial scholar outside the south gate, invited us to play chess. Why didn't you go? I had work that day, replied Qian. Tomorrow, Mr. Hisu, who lives beyond the drum tower, is having a birthday, and he has asked some of my pupils to put on a show. We ought to go ourselves to congratulate him. Which Mr. Hisu said that? Asked Pao. He used to be prefect of Ting Chao, said Mr. Huang. He is the same age as I, 82 this year. The court has made him a country elder. Seeing the leisurely and dignified way you pace along leaning on your stick, said Pao, I think you ought to be country elder too, uncle. Look at this old gentleman, Mr. Qian. Why compare him to a retired prefect? Even ministers and vice ministers should look more grand. Not realizing that Pao was poking fun at him, the old man beamed with pleasure. Then they finished their tea and left. Although Pao Wenqing did not approve of the ways of these players, he said no more. He wanted to find some boys to start a small company of his own, so started searching all through the city for some who would be suitable. One day, on the slope leading up to the drum tower, he met a man. But to know who it was that Pao Wenqing met, you must read the next chapter.